during the card scene, they actually decided to do a roundabout, and then at one point the camera will go from under the table. They didn't want to do it doing it like Earth on a level stage. They had to have it tilted, different angles.
4. 12.
8.
You can see what I mean by they filmed it from under the table. That was no other reason than just because they wanted to make it un-Earth-like.
7. You are lucky tonight.
How about some lemonade and homemade cake, everyone? Sounds wonderful.
This is the supervisor at the plant they work at. He's catching on, and that's where it builds the suspense. It distracts you from the real reality of the story. They try to keep it
Lost quite a bit according to this. We won't settle tonight.
He doesn't know what's on the other side of the table.
Next week. Next week we'll give you another chance. Next week? Little cards tonight, eh? Little cards, Carling. We're just about to cut into a cake. You care to join us? Oh, thank you. Just a little lemonade for me.
My wife caught this, and my father-in-law also caught a scene in here, too. When they're fleeing towards the ship, you don't hear car engines, you hear jet engines. The vehicle, my father-in-law is very good at cars, and I asked him, what kind of car is that? He said, that's a custom. He said, probably Barris. We emailed George Barris. He took a look at a clip of that on YouTube and said, oh, that's a car from it's called the Blue Danube, and I did it for the Time Machine. Sure. And I had no idea they took it off the lot because they only had the cars for 2 weeks. So apparently they borrowed the car off the lot, took it to another section, and filmed it for this episode. So even the car is not it's not really Earth-like because it's custom. Another scene, this will be the last one, but I think I've gotten the point about the craftsmanship they put into this. Even for the tiniest little technical details on the series, they took a little extra effort. In this episode, a bunch of monks at a monastery have pretty much kept a man basically in prisoner. He's a old guy in rags, and they can't understand it. And a stranger comes tonight, a dark, stormy night, and they tell him, no, you have to leave him in there. He goes, why? He's in rags. And they go, no, no, he's the devil himself. He thinks they're nuts. You know, these old guys in rags, what the heck, the devil? Well, towards the end, the guy has no faith, and that's what they're trying to explain to him. You have to have faith. Just because he doesn't look like the devil means he isn't. When the guy lets him go, he discovers his mistake. But to make the very initial transformation, if you look carefully, and I'm hoping this shows up good up on this big screen, they put a lot of color red and green lines all over the actor Robin Hughes' face. So as he puts the cloak on, it strokes his beard, and look at the scene where he strokes his beard. What they did is they took a filter, since it's black and white, switched from red to green, so the other lines start showing up. And on screen, you'll see the transformation just starting. Even though there's a bigger scene transformation, you see it already starting on the screen.
Put this on the storm.
Watch when he strokes the beard, you'll notice the face when he starts to move. You can see where it got dark around the eyes. Scene from pillar to pillar was accomplished. The director, Douglas Hayes, said, I saw this movie in the 30s called Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and a similar transformation scene went from scene to scene. So when they went through the pillars, they just basically added more makeup and then did another walk, and they followed through, and they sliced it together. But the initial, if you took a close look, as he's stroking his beard, it starts getting dark around the eyes and the shadings, all the makeup on him. Getting to the in-jokes, which I mentioned earlier. You remember I mentioned Buck Halton? Halton's name shows up. I'm going to show you a couple in-jokes that seems to pop up throughout the episodes. Halton's name appears probably the second most. The set director was Ralph Nelson, so Nelson appears a number of times.
Wait. Hey, this is wild. This is really wild.
This is my favorite. This is an episode called What You Need. And this guy figures the old man can actually tell you the future. So he has a leaky fountain pen, it drops on a newspaper, and if you look real carefully, there's Serling for Rod Serling, Boyle, part of the production crew, as well as Hagar. Director of cinematography was Clements, who actually won a number of Emmys for this. Eddie Denault, they put him as Denault. There's Halton again. Jack Swain, Williams, Dan DeEcker, Gallagher, and up here, Nelson's selection for Ralph W. Nelson. And they reprinted a number of them over here, but they continue to do that. It's one of the best in-jokes they stuck in the show.
Look, you dropped right alongside of a horse's name.
Apparently had that pause there. If you look carefully at all the movie posters in the episodes, you'll also see Nelson's gas fixture shop, Nelson's motel. And once you know the names of the people, you'll start finding them. And I still think there's probably a lot more. I never caught, neither did a few of my friends with repeat viewing. Props were another thing that was reused. And this can happen on numerous television shows. So if you watch Peter Gunn repeatedly the same episodes, it's not just Twilight Zone, there's other shows. This program was filmed on the studio lot at MGM. So they were limited to what they could use, and they try not to use props too often unless they felt no one really paid attention. For this one, which was Third from the Sun, there's a painting here. You can all see that. There is a little bit of music. There's Beethoven's head, violin, piano keys on the bottom. That was the big tip-off here, was the piano keys. Turns out that painting pops up in 3 different episodes of the first season alone.
Important, isn't it?
Piano
I always
keys.
liked your taste, Mr. Pennell.
There's Beethoven's head and the violin. And here's another
I don't know
episode.
anything.
Catch on Beethoven's head? Those are all first season episodes, and there's tons of them. This one I love. It's my personal game. It's called Spot the Little White Horse. That's in the episode Most Unusual Camera. And for the benefit of the radio listeners.
Drink and be merry. For tomorrow... Oh, shut up, Paul.
There's a little white horse again. In the Jungle with John Daner. And this goes for pretty much any show. Keep a look at. Many of the shows that were filmed on MGM's lots, which also includes The Thin Man, One Step Beyond, the first 2 seasons, and other programs, you'll find the exact same props. The episode I showed about the boxer with Boley Jackson, they had posters specifically made for that episode. Boley Jackson versus Cagliostro, some Italian name. If you watch an episode with Charles Bronson on One Step Beyond, which was called The Last Round, in the producer's office, in the episode, up on the wall, they have a whole bunch of posters. There's actually one for Boley Jackson versus Cagliostro, which obviously was filmed or produced after the Twilight Zone episode. So they just used the same props that kept popping up.